Passing your PMP and or CAPM exam does require you to know some formulas or do a few math calculations on your exam. In this video, I'm going to be going through every single one of the formulas that you could potentially see on your tests. Now, these formulas are not complex and they don't require massive amounts of calculation. In fact, if you could do basic math, maybe up to 6th grade level, can you add, subtract, multiply, and divide? If you can do those functions, you are going to be just fine for your exam. In other words, it's really easy. Now, you do have to memorize these formulas, and to help you with that, I'm going to give you a bunch of downloads that I'm going to put in the description of this video that you guys can check out. And with that in mind, let's get started. This is going to be a nice long video. So get your coffee ready, like I have it ready here. Get your coffee ready. Get yourself something to drink. Get yourself a snack to eat, and let's get started. Before we get started, guys, why should you listen to me? Well, I'm Andrew Ramdial, and I am Amazon's, or I should say the world's best-selling PMP author. My book, PMP Exam Prep Simplified, is the #1 best-selling guide on Amazon. Around the world, it has helped a few 100,000 people to pass their exam. I'm also the creator of the world's best-selling PMP course on the Udemy platform. We have sold over 300 and something thousand of those already. Combined, I've helped over 500,000 people pass their exam. Yes, over 500,000. It sounds like a crazy number to me. It's mind-blowing. Let's get started. So before I get started, these formulas, you can actually learn them in my study guide. And I'm going to be giving you guys, if you don't have the study guide, you don't need to purchase it because I'm going to give it to you free right now. If you look in the description, there is a download link to this thing. So all the formulas that I'm going to be going over, I have here. I'm going to be giving this thing to you guys. This comes on page 381 of the study guides. If you have the study guide, you have this. If not, you don't need to get the study guide. It's already in the description. So these are all the formulas that I need to cover with you guys. I also have a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to be going through with you guys that's going to give you more explanation of this. If you just want a quick thing of all the formulas you need to know, I have it here. And the PowerPoint is going to give you more explanation on this. So keep that in mind. Also in the description, I'm also going to give you guys an Excel sheet so you can practice this yourself. I'm going to be using an Excel sheet as I go through the video to help us practice the formulas. And to show you guys what that looks like, here is what the Excel sheet will look like. This is on Google Docs, so make sure you have a Gmail account and you can actually go and play around with this Excel sheet. Again, all the links to this is in the description below, so check them out. So you're going to get a few attachments. You're going to get the PDF of the formulas. You're going to get the PDF of the PowerPoint that you see me use, and I'm going to be giving you guys this Excel sheet. Now, this video is not meant to give you practice questions. This video is meant to teach the topic. If you guys really want me to do a video of just practice questions with these formulas, put in the description, put in the comments, let me know if that's something you're interested in. And by the way, this video took a long time to compile and it's about to take a long time to film. And I stand up doing all my videos. If you guys really appreciate the work me and my team does, can you please give the video a like? Can you subscribe to the channel? In fact, I think if you don't subscribe, maybe the download links will not work. Actually, they still work, but we would really like, in fact, the last video I did, where I did 100 practice questions, that video had 15,000 views as of right now. And only about 100 people subscribe to the channel. Yeah, that's a pretty bad ratio we have there. Guys, if you guys appreciate the work we're doing, it really helps us out. If you can just click the subscribe button, give the video a like, would be greatly appreciated. All the things I'm giving you guys, we give you guys a lot of things to help you pass the test. All we're asking for is something absolutely free. Just click the like button, click the subscribe button, would be absolutely amazing. All right, so with that in mind, guys, let's get started with these formulas. Now, again, the presentation that I'm going to be using, as you can see here, this presentation I'm going to be giving you guys in the description, a PDF of it. Okay, so let's get started. So when it comes to formulas for your exam, on your exam, there are basically 3 categories of formulas. What's called earned value management, PERT, and the communication channel. Now, the PMP and the CAPM exam basically cover the same topic. They both cover traditional project management, agile project management, hybrid project management. The CAPM does include an additional section called business analysis. There's no formulas in that section at all. All the formulas you're going to get for your CAPM exam is within these 3 categories. How do I know? I actually took this current CAPM exam when it first came out, and believe me, these are all the formulas you're going to need. There are other formulas that are out there. So people say, hey, Andrew, what about the procurement formula? What about the formulas for project selection methods? You don't need to know that. If I don't cover it in this video, you do not need to know it for your test. There are other variants of the earned value management, things like the EAC or the TCPI. They have other variants of them. Don't worry with that. Just know the ones that I am going to be covering on this test. Remember, guys, I've helped 500,000 people pass, so I think I know a little bit on the formulas. Now, one thing I do have is my calculator icon. One of the most common questions I get is, Andrew, are we going to get a calculator on the test? And the answer is yes. If you do this exam in a testing center and or at home, you are actually going to get a on-screen calculator, similar to how you would have. It looks like your Windows calculator. All right, so it looks just like a Windows. Where is that? Where is that desktop button? There you go. It looks like this. It looks like a Windows calculator. So keep that in mind. It's nothing special. You don't need any scientific calculator. Again, if you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, you're good. Now, when it comes to questions, let's talk the PMP exam. The PMP exam is, of course, different than the CAPM exam. And here's where it gets kind of odd. You'd think the PMP should be harder than the CAPM. It's actually not. The PMP exam, you're only going to get 2 to 5 questions. I've never heard of people getting more than 5 questions on it. I'm saying you will most likely, notice I say here, most likely will not need to calculate any formulas. 80% of the people that takes this exam never has to use the calculator. They have to interpret the results. So you got to pay attention when I'm going through this, all the formulas. If I tell you guys that a CPI is 1.1, what does that mean? If I say the SPI is 0.6, what does that mean? That's what you need to know mostly for your PMP exam. You have to be able to interpret the result, not necessarily memorize it and calculate it. Now, I say most likely because 20% of people will have to calculate the formulas. 20% of the students will have to know and memorize those formulas. Now, don't worry about the memorization. I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to memorize that. So I'm saying most likely you will not need to calculate it, but you will need to memorize it. You don't necessarily need to memorize it. I just mentioned that. All right. You don't have to memorize it, although I'm going to tell you will. So as I go through this video, I'm going to tell you guys you all should memorize these formulas. Why? Well, let me tell you guys something. If you get let's say you get 4 questions on your exam, and 2 of them to interpret, 2 of them to calculate. If you know how to interpret it, good, you got those 2 right. But if you don't memorize them, you might get 2 questions wrong. And let me tell you guys something. That sometimes the difference between a pass and a fail is 1 or 2 questions. Believe me. All right, I've been down the path where the passing grade was like 600 and I got like a 590. That was on an IT exam once, which means I literally failed by 1 question. So I've been down that path. I'm going to tell you guys, I would prefer for you guys to memorize these formulas and know them well. Now, if you're doing a CAPM exam, this is where it gets tricky because you are guaranteed to get, I'm pretty sure, more than 4. I think I got 5 or 6 of them. 4 to 8 questions you will need, and I guarantee you will get questions on your exam to make sure you know those formulas. In fact, some of the questions are literally just asking you, what is the formula for CPI? What is the formula for PERT? What is the formula for CV? You need to know your formulas. You will also need to interpret the results, so you better memorize those formulas. All right, so keep that in mind. You're going to need to calculate them, and you're going to need to be able to interpret them, and you're going to need to memorize this. So for you PMP folks, you got it easier. For you CAPM folks, you got it harder. You would think it would be the opposite way around, considering the PMP is a higher level exam than the CAPM. But in this world of calculations, it's actually the opposite. Okay, so these are the things here we need to know. So keep that in mind, guys. You're not going to get many questions on your exam for these formulas, but you know what? This 1 hour plus video is probably going to get you at least 3 or 4 questions correct. So let's get started with all the formulas. Now, I mentioned there are 3 sets of formulas that you need to know. EVM, Earned Value Management, PERT, Program Evaluation Review Technique, and the Communication Channel. These are the three sets of formulas. And we're going to be covering these three sections right now. And let's get started, guys. One of the most complex topic on a PMP exam is right here, is this thing right here. This is Earned Value Management, and the formulas that comes with it is considered one of the hardest topics to learn on this exam. And I'm going to try to break this down. I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible for you guys. And if you have my video course, you already have all these explanations already, but I'm going to give it to you guys in just one video now versus a different set of videos that you found in that course. So let's get started. What exactly is it? Earned Value Management. Earned Value Management is taught in the cost section of project management. It's taught in the cost section of my course. You read about it in the cost section of my book. You read about it in the cost section of the PMBOK guide. Be it the 6th edition, 7th edition, I'm pretty sure in the new upcoming 8th edition. Earned Value Management is a series of formulas that we're going to be using to give us statistics on our status on the project work. So it's used to give status about the project work. It answers questions such as, is the project on budget? Is it on schedule? What will this project cost when it's completed? So we can forecast what exactly is it. It answers questions, how far are you off from the budget? Things like that. How far are you off from the schedule? Earned Value Management, these formulas are calculated not in the initiating or the planning section of the project. These formulas are calculating the execution and the monitoring and controlling of the project. What these formulas are doing is that they're going to take the actual work and compare it against the plan work. So for example, the plan work says we should have spent $10 on the project, but the project has actually spent $8. So the plan says we should have spent 10, but we spent 8. Great, you're on the budget by $2. But what if the plan said you had to spend 10, but you spend 12? Well, now you're $2 over budget. That's not good. Earned Value Management, these formulas will tell us these things. I know what I just gave you there is an easy example, and you'll see that. Now, it's a series of formulas on there. Now, I'm going to be going back and forth between my slides over here and the Excel sheet that I have because, wait a minute, don't stop the video. Don't hold your head and cry yet. They're not that difficult, okay? I gave you guys these. This is that document. This is that PDF that you just downloaded. They're not that difficult. Don't cry yet. These are all the formulas that I need to cover. That's what's going to make this video really long. Now, I want to point out that they're not that difficult. Why is that? Well, they come in groups of 4. This is how I look at them. They come in groups of 4. So let's take a look here. So the BAC, the PV, the EV, and the AC, these 4 is calculated together. And if you can get these 4 correct, you're going to get the rest of them correct because these 4 are plugins to the next 4. And these 4 are then plugins to the next 4. You guys understand that? So this here will feed this one, and then this one will feed that one. That's how this is. So, for example, BAC, PV, EV, and AC, okay, are all plugins to these 4. Because if you notice, like to calculate this EV, you need to have EV and AC. Well, there we go with EV and AC right there. So you need to know that, all right? They're not that difficult. If you just get 4 numbers, you can get all the other 8 correct. And here's what's pretty cool about these formulas. In fact, 2 of them are not even formulas. They're given to you in the problems. You just have to calculate 2 things. And they're not that difficult. Now, the rest of these here are formulas that you're going to need to memorize. And if you notice, some of them are in red. And you're wondering, why is that? That's the easy part of memorization. I'll explain that to you when I'm finished with all the formulas. So you have all of these 4 here. Once again, I know I'm sounding like a record here, but I like repetition. It's good. These 4 here will use the values from the top. These 4 here will then use the values from the top 4. So remember, we do them in 4s. So with that in mind, let's get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to calculate. We are going to Go through these first four: BAC, PV, EV, and AC. I'm going to cover them right now, and then I'm going to go to an Excel sheet, and I'm going to do one of the problems with you. And then we're going to come back to this presentation. We're going to talk about these four. Then we're going to go back to the Excel sheet and cover those. Then we're going to talk about these four and then go back to the Excel sheet and cover those four. And then we're going to do a whole problem all by ourselves. And then there is a third one for you to try. So I'm going to be doing two with you, two entire problems. And then you are going to practice one by yourself. The answers are going to be in the bottom of the sheet. Let's get started. So the first thing we want to learn is, let's get right into this. This is the first formula of the video. The BAC. What exactly is this? This is the budget at completion. The BAC is a formula that's not actually a formula. This is the easiest formula to know because there's no formula here. This is just the original budget of the project. The budget at completion, the BAC. If you have a project that is $10,000, well, what's your budget at completion? $10,000. If your budget is approved at 20 million, then your budget at completion is 20 million. Easy enough. The BAC is not a formula. It's just the budget of the project. So whenever you read the question on the exam, you have to make sure you read it and understand, okay, so where do I find the BAC? It's whatever the budget is. Sometimes they may make you calculate the budget. What do I mean by that? Well, they're going to say, the project has 4 phases and each phase is 10,000. Then what's the budget? It's $40,000. I don't really consider that a formula. That's just hopefully reading and understanding well. So keep that in mind. It's generally nothing to calculate. They will generally give this to you in the question. The next formula is going to be PV. Now PV stands for the planned value. This is the amount of money worth of work that should have been done on the project. Again, it's the amount of money worth of work that should, keyword, have been done on the project. The formula here is going to be the planned percent complete times the BAC. So what is it? It's the planned percent complete times the BAC. Now, in order to calculate this, I want to give you guys a really easy scenario. We're going to use this easy scenario to calculate a series of formulas here. So let's say we're working on a project, and I'm going to tell you guys the budget of this project is going to be $100. Okay, $100. The duration of this project is 5 days, and right now is going to be, let's say, the end of the 3rd day. So end of the 3rd day. All right, so $100, 5-day project. Right now is the end of Wednesday. So let's say it's Monday through Friday. And right now is the end of Wednesday. If you think about it this way, if you're working on a project that's evenly spread across, now you should make the assumption for the exam that it is actually evenly spread across. Now, if you're looking at it that way, then you should have done 20% a day. 20% across 5 days is 100%. So if you think about this, Monday 20%, Tuesday another 20, Wednesday another 20, that's 60%, 80% Thursday, 100% Friday. So let's say right now is the end of the 3rd day. Then what exactly is the planned percent? The planned percent at the end of the 3rd day should have been 60% times the budget. Remember, the BAC is the budget of the actual project. So I'm telling that to you, it's $100. So we know this. That means the answer here is $60. Put a dollar sign there. So we know that this is $60. Now, how do you read this? Well, the way you read the PV is that you should have done $60 worth of work by the end of the 3rd day. That's how you see that. All right. Oh my God, my handwriting is pretty bad, guys. I know it's pretty bad. Don't yell at me. Give me some mercy. There you go. $60 is the planned value. Now, let me give you guys a couple more examples. Let's say you're reading a question, or you have to interpret it, and they say, well, the PV is $400. That means they should have done $400 worth of work. If the PV is 10 million, then they should have done $10 million worth of work. Let's take a look at the next formula. Now, I want you guys to understand something. Well, we're going to do a couple examples of this. So you don't have to get all of it right now. It all comes together later in the end. The next famous one, and this is going to be the most famous formula. This is PV, planned value. PV is equal to the actual percent complete times the BAC. It is the amount of money worth of work that was actually done on the project. So this one is actually done versus the other one here is what should have been done. Let's say, remember this project we're working on? All right, we got $100, 5 days, end of the third day. Let's say, as the project manager, you looked at the work and you said, wow, my team is amazing. They did 75% of the work by the end of the third day. Well, in order to calculate the EV, it's basically 75% times 100, which equals 70. You know what? Let me make this not the best handwriting here. 75% times 100 equals $75. So here's how you would read this. Okay, the PV is $60. We should have done $60 worth of work, but we were amazing. We're ahead of schedule. We did more work every single day, or maybe there's just a lot of work on Wednesday. We did $75 worth of work. Then the project manager has to ask, well, how much money did they spend doing all this extra work? That's where this comes in. The actual cost is the amount of money you already spent on the project. Again, it's the amount of money worth of work you've already spent on the project. There's no formula here. This you have to read the question. I'm going to tell you guys it's $70. So if we look at this, and again, there's no formula. If you look at it this way, look at this. So the BAC was $100. We had a project that was a $100 budget. We should have done $60 worth of work. We actually did $75 worth of work, and we only spent $70 doing it. You guys got it so far? So what did we do? All right, once again, we had a project with a $100 budget. We should have done $60 worth of work. We did $75 worth of work. Again, we should have done 60. We actually did 75. We only spent $70 doing it. This project is doing good. We are under the budget. Again, because if you did 75% of the work, you should have spent $75. We actually spent $70. We're ahead of schedule because we should have done $60 worth of work. We did $75 worth of work. Now, the formulas that's going to give us these statistics, the formula that's going to give us these statistics are going to be things like CV, CPI, SV, SPI is going to give us these statistics. Now, before I get into the next four, I want to do another scenario with you. And for that, I'm going to use my Excel sheet. So let's go take a look at our little Excel sheet that we have going on here. And again, we're going to come back and we're going to be doing, this should be BAC. We are going to be doing more practice. So let's go take a look at this. So here we go. Here's my Excel sheet. All right, let's take a look at a scenario. And again, we want to calculate four numbers. We want to do the BAC, the PV, EV, and AC. All right, let me increase this to 200% so you guys can see this. All right, so let's take a look at a scenario. Bob is a project manager for painting a large room. His project is $100. Today is the end of the third day, and they should have completed 60%. But have completed 75% of the work and have spent $80 so far. So slightly different variation than what I told you. So can you guys fill this in now? Let's go. So let's put this in here. So what exactly is the BAC? Well, the BAC here is going to be $100. How do we know that? Because the problem is telling me it's $100. What is the planned value? Well, it says today's the end of it, and they should have done 60%. So we're going to say equal. Now, I'm not going to teach you guys Excel here, or I should say Google Sheet. But in order to do a formula, you just you start with the equal sign. We'll say equal 60%. What's the formula? It's the planned percent complete times the BAC, which is going to be $100. So PV here is going to be, oops, we forgot the times there. Oops. PV here is going to be $60. Again, that formula was 100 with 60%, which is this number, times the budget. The EV is equal to 75% times 100. This is what we actually did, 75%. And how much money did we spend doing it? $80. So far, we're good. All right. Now, let's go in and take a look at the next formulas. And I'm going to then come back and we're going to calculate them right on the sheet. The good news is that once you have calculated these four numbers, calculating the next four, CV, CPI, SV, SPI, is relatively easy. All right, they're relatively easy as long as you understand what they are. And if you're doing your PMP, these are going to be the formulas that's going to appear on your test. CV, CPI, SV, SPI. In fact, CPI and SPI is going to be the most popular ones. Let's go take a look at them. Where is it? Right here. So let's take a look. CV is cost variance. This is the difference between the work done and the money spent. This value should be positive for under budget and negative for values indicating over budget. The formula is EV minus AC. Let's get into this. So EV minus AC. This is how you would calculate this. So in our example, if we go back, we know that EV is $75. We know AC was $70. So in our example that we're doing here, again, the one in the Excel sheet is slightly different. In our example, this one here is going to be $75 minus 70, which is equal to a positive $5. Great. So here's how you read this. This project is $5 under budget. All right, this project is $5 on the budget. Let me give you guys a couple more scenarios. If your CV is negative $200, you're $200 over budget. If your CV is positive $200, you're $200 under budget. If your CV is zero, you are on budget. That's how you read that. Okay? Negative values means you are over budget by that much. Positive values means you're under budget by that much. So remember, positive good, negative bad. The next one, CPI. This is going to be the famous one for your PMP exam. Also for your CAPM, you're going to probably have to calculate it. This is the cost performance index, the rate of how we are spending to actually earn it on the project. This value should be 1 and over for projects under budget. Now, if it's on 1, it's on budget. If it's over 1, it's under budget. If it's under 1, it's over the budget. I said that wrong. Let's start again. This value should be 1 and over for projects under the budget. So what do we mean? If it's 1 and over, it's good. It's under budget. If it's under 1, it's over the budget. So you never want to be over your budget. The formula here is EV divided by AC. So for us would be 75 divided by 70. What is the formula here? I have no idea because I don't have a calculator in my head. But you know what I could do is I could calculate it right here with you guys. Where is that button? Okay, here we go. We could calculate it by saying 75 divided by 70 is 1.07. So we can say 1.07. So now, yeah, my zeros don't always look good. So 1.07. So here's how you would read this. 1.07. The way you read this is by saying this project is 7% under budget. If this thing is 1, you read it as a percentage. If this thing is 1 and greater, it's great. So 1.07 means you're 7% under budget. If it's 1, you're 100% on budget. If it's 1.2, you're 20% under budget. If it's 1.3, you're 30% under budget. If it's 1.4, you're 40% under budget, which is good. If you are 0.9, you are 10% over budget. If you're 0.8, you are 20% over budget. That's how you got to read this. It's read as a percentage. Once again, if you're at 1, you are on budget. If you are over 1, great. You're on the budget by that much of a percentage. So if you're 1.05, you're 5% over or under. You're 5%. Did you say it? Correct? You're under budget. Correct. 1.2. Where are you at? Did you say 20% under budget? You are correct. What if I say 0.6? You should say I'm 40% over budget. No good. That's how you read that number. The next one we have is going to be SV, or schedule variance. So in this one, this is the difference between the amount of work we should have done versus the amount of work we actually did. This value should be positive for ahead of the schedule and negative indicate behind schedule. Now, this is, of course, dealing with the schedule versus the other one dealt with the budget, the SCV I'm talking about. The formula here is SV is equal to EV minus PV. Now, in our scenario we were doing, our EV was 75 and our PV was, I forgot, PV was $60. So that means that SV is positive $15. Here's what that means. We did $15 worth of work positive, which means we are ahead of the schedule by $15 worth of work. Okay, this is great. Let me give you a couple more examples. If this number is 0, all right, means you are on schedule, 100% on schedule. If this number is negative, let's say negative 100, you are $100 worth of work behind schedule. If this number is positive 100, you are $100 worth of work ahead of the schedule. Once again, if the number is negative, let's say negative 200, you are $200 worth of work behind schedule, no good. Speed it up, guys. If you're a positive 200, you're $200 worth of work ahead of schedule. Good job, guys. Keep that in mind. Positive bad, negative good, 0 is on schedule. SPI. Now, this is read like a percentage, the same way we would do it for the CPI, except this particular one is dealing with the schedule. This is the rate of how we are meeting the project schedule. This value should be 1 and over for a project to be ahead of the schedule. Now, let's calculate it. So in this one here, we're going to do EV. We're going to do 75 divided by 60, which is, I have no idea. Let's bring up our calculator. So we're going to do 75 divided by 60 is 1.25. So what does that mean? 1.25. Okay, so here's how you read that. Let me remove these. Yeah, now you guys know why I don't write too much, right? 1.25. Here's how you read this. We are 25% at the head of the schedule. We should have been 60. We're at 75%. That's 25% ahead. All right, that's how fast we're going. We're doing this at a good pace. Now, let me give you a couple examples. If this number is 1, you are 100% on schedule. If this number is 1.2, you're 20% ahead of schedule. If this number is 1.3, you are 30% ahead of the schedule. If this number is 0.8, you are 20% behind schedule. No good. If this number is 0.6, you are 40% behind schedule. No good. All right. So in this example that I'm giving you guys, you notice that everything is good. 1.25 means we're 25% ahead of schedule. All right. We are $15 worth of work ahead of schedule. We are 1.07. We're 7% under budget. We are $5. We are $5 worth of work, basically $5 under the budget. So we're doing great. Let's go back to that Excel sheet, though. Let's go back to that Excel sheet. Where is that Excel sheet? So this one is going to be slightly different. This one I made different because I want to show you a slightly variance. So what is the CV? So the CV is equal to EV. All right. So what is the EV here? It's 75 minus the AC, which is actually $80. So it's 75 minus 80, which you notice is negative $5. That's different than what we just saw. In this one, the CPI is equal to 75 divided by A. So it's EV divided by AC. 0.94. Notice this is different. So you notice the way you would read this project is $5 over budget. They're basically 6% over budget. So when they say, how far are you off? You're going to say, well, I'm 6% over the actual budget. The SV here is equal to, scroll down a little bit. The SV is equal to the EV, which is 75, minus the PV, which is 60. So this stays the same, $15. And the SPI here is equal to 75 divided by $60, 1.25. Okay, hopefully you guys got that. All right, now I want you guys to understand the numbers. Let's go through these here because these are, I told you guys, it's super important to understand what these numbers mean. So on this project, you're basically $5 over budget, which is going to be about 6% over the budget. Again, if it was 1 year on budget. So you get 6% to catch up. We have a $15 worth of work ahead of the schedule, and that brings it out to about 25% ahead of the schedule so far on the project. Hopefully this is making sense so far. All right, let's go back here and take a look now at our next series of formulas. That's going to be EAC, ETC, VAC, and TCPI. Let's take a look. So, EAC. This is a really important formula. This is known as the forecast. EAC is the estimated completion. This is a formula that forecasts the total cost of the project at the end based on the current spending rate. This is when the boss comes into the room and says, "Hey, Mary, how much money is this project going to cost us when it's finished based on how you're doing right now?" That's what this number does. It basically, the formula is to take the budget that we originally had and we're going to divide it by how we're spending our money, the rate of spending. So in this one here, we're going to take, basically it's going to be $100 divided by how we're spending it, the CPI, which I believe is 1.07. So we're going to take $100 and we're going to divide it by 1.07. That's going to give us a value of how much? Well, let's see here. We got 100 divided by 1.07. It's $93.46. That's what this works out to. So let's take a look. 93.46. So let me read this for you. So the way you read this is like this. Basically, you're saying that when this project is done, we're forecasting that we're going to finish it at $93.46. Before, the budget used to be $100. We're saying that, you know what, based on how we're spending our money and how much work we're completing, we're not going to need the full 100. We're only going to need $93.46. That's what this is telling you. The next one I have up is going to be the ETC. It's going to say VS. ETC, estimate to complete. This one here forecasts the amount that would be needed to complete the current project based on the current performance. Now, in this one here, this is when the boss comes and says, "Okay, so how much more money do you need to finish your project?" All right, that's what this is. So let's say your EAC, according to this one, $93.46. I'll just go with $93. Is $93 minus how much you spent already, which was, I believe in this example we're using here, our AC was $70. $70. So we're going to say, in this particular one, 93 minus 70, I don't need a calculator for this, is $23. So we're going to tell the boss, "Hey man, when the boss says, "Hey, Mary, how much more money you need to finish your project?" And Mary says, "Well, I only need $23 more." This is based on currently how we're spending. That's all this is. The ETC basically answers the question, how much more money do you need to finish your project? The other one here is going to be the VAC. This is the difference between the original budget and the new forecasted budget. This value should be positive for project that may end at or under the budget. So you want a positive value. In this one, the variance at completion, the VAC, you're going to take the BAC, which is $100, and you're going to minus it from the EAC, the estimate at completion, which is $93, which is $7. Here's what this number tells me. This number means that when the project is over, you're going to have $7 remaining. If this number is 0, it means you're not going to have anything remaining. You're going to finish it at budget. If this number is $7 positive, like I have here, that means that when this project is done, you're going to have $7 remaining. $7, you should bring it in at $7 under the budget. That's all this is saying. If this number is like -20, you're going to have to go to your boss and get another 20 bucks to finish this project. So you don't want this number negative. You want it to be positive. Now, the next value that you're going to be seeing here is going to be the TCPI. Now, this is not something that I've heard about a lot of people getting on their exam. In fact, I've not heard anyone got this one recently. But this is a value that you may come across. This is a performance index. It is equal to a large formula, which we'll cover here in a second. This basically is the performance that needs to be met to finish the project within the budget. This is called a performance index, or particularly to complete performance index. This tells us how hard we have to work in order to meet the project budget. It's calculated based on the values we have. So right now, we have our BAC is 100 minus, and you notice it's BAC minus EV divided by BAC minus AC. So in our one, the BAC is 100, EV is 75, divided by BAC, which is going to be 100 minus AC is 70. So in this one here, it's basically 25 divided by 30, which is going to give us, I have no idea, which is going to give us the trusty calculator here, guys. We got 25 divided by 30 is 0.83. So in this one, 0.83. That's what this is. So here's how you're going to read this. Basically, you're going to read this a percentage. All right? Basically, if this number is 1, just keep doing what you're doing and you're going to meet your budget. If this number is 1.2, you need to work 20% harder. Because this number is 0.83, we could slow down our performance by 17% and meet the budget of $100. That's what this number really is. Let me explain to you. Let's make the number even. Let's say it was 0.8. So if the number is 0.8, you can go into your team and say, okay, guys, slow down. How much to slow down, they'll ask? Well, if you guys slow down by 20%, we're going to finish the project at $100. If this number was 1.2, you got to go and say, okay, you guys need to work 20% harder in order to meet the budget. That's how you read that. All right. So once again, if this number is 1, in this version of it, there's multiple ways to calculate this. I'm giving you the one that was mostly used on the test. If this number is 1, keep doing what you're doing, you're going to meet the budget. If this number is under 1, you can slow down the work and still meet the budget. By how much? By 17%. If this number is 1.2, you need to speed up your work. You need to do 20% more work in order to meet the budget. This is how hard do we have to work in order to meet the budget. For us, we don't need to work that hard. We already worked harder earlier. Remember, we're already on the budget. Okay, this is actually all of the EVM formulas. Let's go and practice them in those scenarios that I have. All right, so let's go back to our trusty sheet here, and we're going to be putting some formulas in. Okay, so what do we have here? So the EAC is equal, if you guys remember the formula, is going to be BAC, which was 100 divided by the CPI, which I'm just going to click on it because I just want to divide it from that cell, 0.94. That means that this here, by the way, this is a dollar sign, so we're going to put a dollar on this. All right, so in this one, if you remember the example we did, we were under budget, right? This one, we're over the budget. So that means this number is telling me that when this project is finished, we are going to be at $106. We're not going to be at $100 because if you notice, my CPI is 0.94. If you remember an example that we spoke about earlier, the example I did on the slide there, that example, that CPI was 1.07. So it was under 100 because this CPI is 0.94 or under 1. Remember, it's no good. That means we need $6 more. What's the VAC? Well, the VAC is how much more money do we need to finish the project. So in this one, we're going to take the formula. Well, what is the formula? Well, if we look at the formula here, ETC, it's EAC minus AC. So it's EAC minus AC. Where is that one? Okay, so EA equal to the EAC minus the AC, which is right here. So how much more money do we need to finish this project? Well, we need $26.67. So when the boss comes, hey, how much more money you need? Well, if you think about it, we already spent $80. We're forecasting $106, so we need $26.67 more. But what's the VAC? Well, the VAC is how much money are we going to need or have left over when we're done? So in this one, we're going to take the BAC and we're going to subtract it from our new forecasted budget, which is $106. This is going to give me a negative value. When this project is over, we need an additional $6.67 to finish. Now, TCPI, this is going to be a big calculation. What exactly is it? Well, if you remember, this thing has a pretty large calculation on it. So we got to do all this. So this one here, big calculation. Let's get started on this. So in this one here, we're going to take a couple numbers. We're going to say equal, and we're going to put in some parentheses and formulas here. We're going to say equal, we're going to say the BAC minus the EV. Then we're going to divide that by the BAC minus the AC. What did we get? 1.25. Okay, 1.25. What does that mean? Well, that means we need to work 25% harder. That's what that means, all right? We need to work 25% harder in order to meet this project at its budget. Versus the other one was 0.83, if you remember that. Because in that one, we were under budget. This one, we're over budget, so you notice this value is bigger. Now, did we get these values right? Well, before the video started, I calculated all the values. You guys can practice this. When you get the sheet, this is blank. But if you go down to row 30, if you scroll down to row 30, you're going to notice that I already put all the formulas here for you. All right, so I did all the formulas for you. Okay, in this video, we're going to be I want to do a full practice with you. Now that we covered all the formulas, let's do a quick practice. All right, here's what I would like you guys to do. Let's stop the video. Let's pause the video. I wanted you guys do example 2. All right, why don't you guys do this example right here? Example 2, this is the software project. Why don't you guys see if you can do this? And if you scroll down on row 30, you can actually check your work. All right, so let's get started. Again, pause the video right now. Did you pause it? Okay, welcome back. Let's go do it. Let's read this here. So Mary is a project manager for software development project. Her project budget is $55,000. So far, they've completed 30%. So far, they should have completed 30%, but have completed 25% of the work and have spent $17,000 so far. So let's go work this out. Okay, what's the VAC? I'm sorry, I have VAC. It should be BAC. Okay, so what's the BAC here? The budget. So the budget here is going to be $55,000. What is the planned value? Well, the planned value is equal to the planned percent complete. In this one here, notice it says 30% should have completed 30%. So it's 30% times the BAC, which is the 55,000. You could just type in a number, or you could just click on the cell. And you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put in that multiplication sign. Okay, so that's the planned value. What's the EV? Well, the EV is equal to the actual percent complete times the BAC. That gives me $13,750. What's the AC? Well, how much have they spent so far? $17,500. Okay, so keep that in mind. So, 55. Let's go over this. Let's take a look at what they're saying here. We got a project that's $55,000. It's a $55,000 budgeted project. We should have done $16,500 worth of work. We actually did $13,750 worth of work, and we spent $17,500 doing it. Right off the bat, I can tell you this project is no good. If you're at PV and your EV is bigger than that EV, they're all going to be negatives and under ones. This is not a very good project. Let's go work out the numbers. So what is EV? I'm sorry, CV. So CV is going to be equal to EV minus AC, negative $3,750. That means that you're over budget by $3,750. What's the CPI? Well, it's equal to EV divided by AC, 0.79. You are 21% over budget. Again, because this is under one, you're 21% over budget. SV, this is going to be equal to EV, equal EV minus PV, or the planned value. You are $2,750 worth of work behind schedule. Not ahead, behind. No good. This number is negative. SPI is equal to EV, $13,750, divided, this is an index, divided by the planned value, 16.5. We'll say enter, and this is 0.83. So that means you are 17% behind schedule. That's how you read this. All right, let me reduce some of the, we don't need all those decimals in there. Now, let's go to the next four. All right, so you know what? Let's review these here before we move on. These four. So you are $3,750 over budget. That means about 21% over budget, basically. That's the 0.79. You're $2,750 worth of work behind schedule. That's about 17% behind schedule with the 0.83 on the SPI. Well, now the boss comes to you and says, EAC, well, when this project is done, what are you going to finish it at? How much more money do you, what are you going to finish this project at? Right now, you got a budget of $55,000. How much are you going to need? Well, in this one, EAC is the forecast. So we're going to take equal, we're going to take the budget and we're going to divide it by how we're spending our money, our CPI. And that's equal to $70,000. All right, so we are taking, when this project is done, we're not going to finish it at, we're not going to finish it at 55,000. We're going to finish this thing at 70,000. So we need a lot more money. When the boss says, how much more money do you need? Well, that's the ETC. That's going to be equal to the EAC minus how much we already spent so far, the AC. So in order to finish this project, guys, we need $52,500 more. The VAC, well, in this one, what we're going to do is we now need to calculate, well, how far were we off from the original budget? Well, let's do equal the original budget. So this formula is BAC minus EAC. So in this one, we're going to take the original budget and we're going to subtract it from the new forecasted budget of 70,000. And this tells me that we are basically $15,000 off. All right. The original budget said, hey, you need 55,000. We're saying now we need 70,000. That means that we're going to need an additional 15,000. Those numbers negative. So if this number is negative, it means that you need that much more money to finish the project. If this number was positive, you would have $15,000 left over. Now the TCPI. The TCPI is a big calculation. And for that one, I'm just going to cheat a little bit. And I'm just going to go down to the bottom where I've already calculated it for you. In this one, you're basically going to take your budget at completion, your BAC, and you're going to subtract it from your EV. So the BAC minus EV divided by the BAC minus AC, which is the 33, and you should have got 1.1. That means you need to work 10% harder in order to meet that budget. Okay, that is all the EVM formulas I have here for you guys. There is a third example on the sheet here. I want to just point out to you guys, there is a third example on here that you guys can practice. If not, this video is going to be like 500 hours. And if you go down to, let me correct this. And if you guys scroll down, you'll see the answers. They started row 30 for the answers, okay? So keep that in mind. Okay, so those are going to be your EVM formulas. Replay this section if needed. And I want to give you guys some exam tips on this, then we'll go into the other two. So let's go in here. These were the formulas we covered. These formulas. Now, some people say, Andrew, do you have an easy way of memorizing all these formulas? Yeah, it's pretty easy. I don't think these formulas are hard to remember. Let me give you a couple quick things. First of all, the BAC and the AC, there's nothing there to remember. Now, keep in mind, the planned value and the earned value are both multiplied against the BAC. And PV is easy to remember because it's literally P means plan. So it's the planned percent times the BAC. And EV, it means earn. For you to earn something means that you actually had to do it. You can't earn something if you actually haven't do it. So it's the actual percent times the BAC. Did you guys get that? Hopefully that makes it easy. Now, the next four is really easy to remember. All right, let me show you guys how to remember the next four. Every time you see a V, it's a subtraction. Every time you see an I in any of these formulas, it's a division. Watch me, watch this. You see this? Every time you see an I, just slant it, means division. Every time you see a V, it's a variance. Variance means subtraction. Notice that CV, CPI, SV, and SPI all starts with EV. Did you guys see that? They all start with EV. Cost deals with actual costs. Schedule deals with plan, right? Because you plan your schedule. So look at this. CV, see that C? That's AC because it deals with costs. S, this deals with the schedule. So this is PV or planned. So watch me. Can you guys give me the formula for CPI? Well, what's CPI? Cost performance. So it's an index. So that means it's a division, correct? And these formulas all start with what? EV. So it's EV divided by what? Well, it's cost. So it's dealing with the actual cost, AC. So the formula is EV divided by AC. What's the formula for SPI? Well, it's an I, so it's a division. They all start with EV. EV divided by, these would schedule, PV, correct. What's the schedule for CV? So it's EV, it's a variance, minus AC. Hopefully you guys get that. All right, this is the easiest way I know how to memorize it. Most of my students, this is how they get it. This is how they learn it. By the way, this video is going on a long time. If you really appreciate the work I do, can you give the video a like? It would be greatly appreciated. If you like the video so far, if you like all the handouts, if you like my examples, if all the work I put in, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel. It'd be greatly appreciated. Let's go back to this. Now, the other four really doesn't follow any patterns. And you just have to memorize those. I couldn't come up with a way or an easier way to memorize those. If you know of a way to memorize these, maybe you learn it somewhere else, put it in the comments. I'd love to read about it so I can teach it to my students too. These are not that difficult. Come on, I showed you guys that I remember 8 of the 12. They're not too bad. Okay, that is my biggest tip on how to memorize EVM formulas. Let's move on now. We got 2 formulas more I want to cover. 3 more actually. The first one up I want to cover is one that is on the PMP test and one that I see a lot of people get, is what's called the 3-point formula. All right, the 3-point estimation or the 3-point formulas. This is known as PERT, and PERT comes in 2 flavors. There's what's called PERT beta and PERT triangular distribution. There's beta distribution, triangular distribution. Now, there is something called standard deviation. I'm not going to cover that because no one ever gets that on their test. I'm only covering what you're going to see on your test, okay? So let me give you an example of what this formula is. Let's say you go and you have to code a particular module, all right? You're dealing with coders. You go to a programmer and you say, well, how long is it going to take to code that module? And the coder looks at you and says, well, if I just write a simple code and it's mostly just copy and paste from other codes, I'll be done in 10 days. But I most likely will custom write the code and it'll probably take 15 days. Now, if nothing works and I have to debug the code and I have to fix the code and I have to get it from other places, it might take 30 days. How many estimates did that coder just give you? He gave you the best case, 10. He gave you the worst case, 30, and the most likely or realistic number is 15 days. The boss comes to you and says, hey, Mary, how long is it going to take for the module? And you're like, well, I got 3 numbers. I got a 10, I got a 15, and I got a 30. So what number do I tell the boss? Well, that's where this formula comes in. Basically, you're going to take these numbers, you're going to run it across this formula, which is the pessimistic plus 4 times the realistic plus the pessimistic plus the optimistic. Optimistic plus 4 times the realistic plus pessimistic divided by 6. That's this. So let's do the one I just told you. So you're going to take the number 10, the optimistic, plus 4 times the realistic. So what's the realistic here? Was 15, plus the pessimistic was 30. And now multiply them. So let's say 4 times 15 is 60. So 60 plus 30 is 90, plus 10 is 100. So 100 divided by 6. 100 divided by 6 is, I have no idea. 16.7 days. We'll say, you know what, we'll just say 16.7. So we'll just put 17 days. On the exam, by the way, you should round to the 10th place. I know I'm just rounding it up here. 17 days. Basically, so when the boss comes to you and says, well, how long is that going to take to code? And you're like, 17 days. The beta calculation is something very famous. Basically, what you do is you take the middle number, you times it by 4, you add the least and the biggest number, you divide everything by 6. The beta calculation is really important for your exam. You're probably going to get this one for your CAPM and your PMP. People that are getting calculations right now for the PMP gets this one. Now, the beta calculation is PERT. PERT stands for Program Evaluation Review Technique. When people say PERT or 3-point estimate, this is what they mean. There is a variance of this. Now, this formula puts a lot of weight, as you see, on this realistic number. There is a version of this formula that's not really used too much that you may or may not see on your test. I doubt it, but I added it anyhow. And that's called the triangular distribution. In this one, this here is basically estimates time or cost. I forgot to mention this, that PERT is used in both time and cost. So you may see them use it to calculate time estimates and cost estimates. This one is where they weigh every number evenly. So if you remember, the numbers we had was 10, the best case. The realistic was 15 and the worst case was 30. Divide everything by 3. So 10. 45 basically plus 10 is 55 divided by 3 is, once again, we got to get that calculator. This is why you need a calculator, guys. This is why the exam will give you one. 18.3. So it's 18.3. 18.3, we'll just say 18. So basically, in the triangular distribution, you're saying that it takes 18 days. Now, on the test, here's what you should understand on the test. On the exam, what you should know is, if they say PERT, if they say 3-point estimate, you use the beta calculation. Unless they specifically state a triangular or even distribution, then you do this formula. Do not do this formula unless they specifically ask for it. If they just ask for a 3-point estimate or PERT, this is it. When people say PERT, this is what they mean. This is the variant of it, okay? This is not the variant. This is the original PERT. This is the variant of PERT. Just keep that in mind when you're doing your exam. Now, obviously, we have a few examples of this on our little Excel sheet that we want to go through. Here we go. So we have PERT with the painter, and I got one extra for you here. Now, I already put the formulas in. Okay, I put the formulas in here for you. I didn't know if you guys know Excel a lot, so I put it in here. You can see the formula is here for you. Or you could calculate it manually. Okay, so it's similar to what I just gave you. Bob is getting estimates from a painter to paint a large room. The painter says it will take a minimum of 10 days. That means the optimistic is 10. And a maximum of 30 days. That's the pessimistic. So the pessimistic is the worst case scenario. And the realistic number, they're saying most likely Most likely and realistic is the same thing, is 18 days. So you can see right here, the PERT calculation, this is when we times the realistic by 4, and we add everything and we divide everything. Notice we times the realistic by 4, we add the pessimistic, the optimistic, and we divide everything by 6. The triangular, this one here, I just add up all my values and I divide everything by 3. Okay, there is a additional one here that you guys can use to practice. Let me delete it, the value, so you guys can go in, put this in, see what you get out of it. Okay, the next formula here and the last one in this very long video is going to be the communications formula. Now, the communication formula is really just going to be a formula that tells you how many lines of communications are you going to have on a project. Lines of communication specifies basically, is there a potential communication that needs to occur between those two stakeholders? Let me give you an example. Look at this project. Let's say you have 4 stakeholders on a project. And let's say you have Mary, you have Bob, you have Peter, and you have Jane. Okay? Those are your 4 stakeholders. All right? You're Mary, by the way. Let's say you're Mary, you're the project manager. Bob is a team member. Peter is a team member. Jane is a sponsor. Let's go with that. When you have 4 people on a project, you as the project manager have to say to yourself, is there a communication between Mary and Peter? Let's say you're Mary, between me and Peter, between me and Bob, between me and Jane. And how much of the communication is needed? Maybe between Mary and Bob, it's a daily meeting. Maybe between Bob and Peter, another daily meeting. But between you and Peter, a weekly meeting. Now, between you and Jane, a weekly meeting. Maybe between Jane and Peter is sponsor. There's no communication. Between Jane and Bob, Jane doesn't talk to the team member. Jane talks to you only. No communication. Between Mary, okay, we got that. Between Jane, okay, so we did it all. You notice I'm going through, I'm looking at all aspects. I'm looking at every stakeholder, who they're communicating, what is the communication. So this is called a communication analysis. We're analyzing communication needs between all the stakeholders. The question is, how many communication do you need to analyze? Well, that's where this gets complex, because if you have a lot of stakeholders, you know, between these 4 stakeholders is one channel here, one line of communication, potential, another, and another. 6 lines. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 lines of communication. That's what this formula does. So instead of me counting it here, I could just use this formula right here. It's N, that's the number of stakeholders. N represents the number of stakeholders, minus 1 divided by 2. So let's put it in. We got 4 stakeholders. We know we got 6 channels. Let's see if we get 6. 4 minus 1 is 3 times 4 is 12. Divide everything by 2 is 6. That's how they get that. So when they tell you how many stakeholders you have, you just do this formula. N times N minus 1 divided by 2. Let's take a look at this on my little Excel sheet. In this particular one, where is our buttons? Here we go. Okay, so Bob has 14 stakeholders on his project and would like to analyze how many potential between the stakeholders on his project. So this is a simple one. The communication channel, I already put the formula in here for you, okay? So if we just put in, we got 14 stakeholders, we have 91 channels. What's the formula? Well, once again, we're going to take the number of channels, the stakeholders, which was in B4, minus 1 times B4, divide by 2. If you had, in that previous one, we had 4 stakeholders, we got 6 channels. If you got 5 stakeholders, you got 10 channels. All right, that's how this works. Now, this here is a pretty easy formula, nothing complex. You guys can go ahead and try it. You can make up your own and then see if you guys get it. Just change the number 14 to 20 and see if you guys get it. Pretty easy one to get. All right, guys, that was a video on all the different formulas you need to know for your exam. If you guys want to learn more about these formulas or want a much longer explanation, they're all in my 35-hour class for the PMP, the 20-something hours, 23, 24 hours for the CAPM. Also, don't forget, you got the excerpt from my book that has all of the formulas for the PMP. If you guys enjoy the way I teach, check out all the courses that I offer. All the links are in the description below for the 35-hour class. I also have a great cram course for the PMP and the CAPM full-length course. Also, if you're looking to practice and you want practice questions on this, let me know in the description if you'd like some practice questions. I can do a video on a bunch of practice questions with these particular formulas. Also, the book has a bunch of practice questions for the PMP and the simulators. I have simulators for both PMP and the CAPM that really tells you what this exam will look like. So if you guys had fun today, guys, once again, if you can give this video a like, would be amazing. Subscribe to the channel. I got a lot more pretty cool content that's going to help you pass your exam and keep you motivated and make you more successful. And with that note, guys, good luck on your exam, and I'll see you in the next video.